Millionaire CEO freezes after seeing desperate black single mom harassed mid-flight. James Thornton sank deeper into the buttery leather of his first-class seat. The hum of the engines a soothing drum beneath the whisper of luxury. Outside the window, clouds blurred. A soft white veil dragged across the deep blue sky. His tailored suit rested crisp and cool, untouched by the cramped chaos behind him. Champagne tickled his throat. The world was calm, or so it seemed. Then, on a sudden burst of sharp voices, the air shifted. Like a crack in glass, tension splintered through the cabin. James's eyes snapped away from the skyline and caught a scene just a few rows back. It wasn't just noise. It was something worse. A mother. She was young, her face carved with exhaustion and worry, clutching a small boy trembling beside her. The boy's wide eyes darted like panicked birds. He hugged her arm tight as if she were his only shield in the world. And then the man, a stranger. His sneer cut across the space between them, cruel and sharp as broken nails. Words thrown like stones, mean, harsh, and heavy. Harsh accusations laced with hate. "You shouldn't be here," the man spat. "You're making everyone uncomfortable." His voice rose, a poisonous hiss echoing against the cabin walls. People glanced over, some whispering, others staring down or stiffening in silence. The engines faded to a dull roar in James's ears. Instead, the piercing sound was injustice screaming loud and raw. His chest tightened, suddenly too small for the pounding heart inside. Hands clenched the plush armrests, the smooth calm of his life, his glass of wine, the quiet hum of control, all broke like thin ice under his feet. His eyes locked on the mother's face, pulling in every sharp line of fear and grit. The boy whimpered, his small body trembling, and still James stayed frozen. A voice inside screamed to stand up, to fight, to protect. But his mouth went dry. The fear of stepping into a messy fight, the dread of the stranger's anger, the nightmare of disrupting perfect order. Everything held him still. The golden cage felt suddenly heavier. The harassment grew louder. The man leaned in, venom spilling from every syllable. "You don't belong here," he growled again. The mother shushed her son softly, her fingers trembling, trying to hold him together. Then, from the aisle, a flight attendant appeared, her eyes sharp but wary, a flicker of hope in her gaze. But instead of calm, her presence sparked new ripples of uncertainty. The man's face twisted harder. The mother's grip tightened. The whole cabin watched, breath caught on the edge. James's heartbeat thundered. Should he rise and speak, or drown in silence forever? The question hung thick, like the heavy air around them. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And while you're there, drop a powerful like. It really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know each incredible person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The tension thickened, stifling every breath in the cabin. James's pulse raced like a furious drumbeat, drowning out the world around him, fueled by the mounting desperation of the moment. The flight attendant's measured approach was swallowed by the predator's sneer, and for a moment, it felt as if time itself fractured, teetering on the brink of chaos. Just then, a loud crack sliced through the air, an explosive sound that jolted everyone upright. A man had suddenly half risen from his seat at the back of the plane. He clutched a small bag in his hands, and within an instant, a cascade of papers flew out and scattered like autumn leaves, swirling through the air, a whirlwind of white, hastily spilling out. "I have the truth," he shouted, his voice a mix of panic and fury, sending the whole cabin into an electrified silence. This is why she doesn't belong here." James strained to see as the stranger, still harassing the mother, was momentarily stunned, disbelief painting every feature on his face. The woman's face shifted from fear to confusion, her eyes darting between the ruckus of flying papers and the man now rising, shaking like a startled animal. The boy whimpered, sensing the disturbance, a storm brewing amidst the safety of their confined space. "Who are you?" the harasser barked, roiling anger striking out. But the crowd was no longer a detached audience. They leaned in, captivated by something larger than personal squabbles. "Her name is Lisa. Lisa Green," the man said, a tremor in his voice. "She ran away. She took everything from me." Suddenly, the weight of the moment turned heavy. Eyes widened. Whispers swept through the aisles like wildfire. A name echoed, a forgotten past clawing its way to the surface. James's heart stumbled. Memories he thought had crumbled in the backdrop of his own life flickered awake. A face from history he had hoped never to see again. "Wait, what do you mean?" The mother, Lisa, barely managed to whisper, her anxiety morphing into a rigid dread as she caught the man's gaze. His eyes burned with recognition, pulling something sharp and bitter from her own past. "You think you're safe? Your facade is crumbling." His voice, once filled with authority, cracked like ice under pressure. "You're not a victim, you're a thief. You stole everything I had, my son." At this, the small boy's trembling intensified, and James felt the world around him blur, his reality glitching like a bad film. This was a nightmare he hadn't prepared for, a conflict woven with shadows of betrayal and hidden truths, disconnecting every semblance of order. As the airplane banks left, James leaned forward, searching Lisa's face. Her eyes were a whirlwind of expressions: fear, shame, fury, recognition. In that moment, it became cruelly clear, beneath the struggle for survival, a hidden life flickered, dark and tangled, threatening to implode. The cabin erupted into chaos, a mix of screams and gasps swirling through the air, a symphony of shocked faces reflected back at her, and above it all, James felt the cold grip of realization slither around his heart. Lisa was not who she claimed to be. A rush of blood thundered in his ears as he grasped tightly to the intricate web of human connection that had drawn him in. It wasn't James had a world to protect, a facade to maintain. The once sparkling allure of wealth faded, making room for something darker, lurking just beyond the horizon. Then, as if suspending time, he took a trembling breath. His next move would redefine everything, and for better or worse, he was right in the middle of it all. The cabin trembled as chaos erupted, a cacophony of outrage and confusion crashing against the polished walls. James felt the weight of 100 eyes tearing into him, the air thickening with expectation. Reality twisted like a fraying thread, pulling him towards an unseen danger, shrouding the woman he thought he understood. As Lisa's world teetered on the brink, the stranger's fury ignited something deep within James, a surge of instinct telling him to act, to step forward, to break the glassy surface of this emerging storm. Yet as he opened his mouth, the flight attendant's swift command sliced through the air. "Enough," she shouted, her voice crackling with authority, yet fraught with tension. Yet unexpectedly, with the alien shout, came silence. A moment so stark, you could almost hear the air shimmer. The antagonistic man faltered, surprised, just as Lisa's small hand trembled lower, clasping her son's shoulder. "Who are you?" she asked softly, her voice trembling under the weight of the truth, as if the word itself could shatter the fragile facade. "No one important," the man growled, his eyes darting around for affirmation, suddenly vulnerable. "Just a father trying to reclaim his son." James leaned forward, fingers tightly gripping the seat, breath suspended. But then, deep in the chaos, a sudden peal of laughter erupted from another corner of the airplane. It pierced through the tension, bright and jarring. Gasps swept through the crowd, heads turning. "Let me tell you about Lisa Green." A woman stood up, a stranger with wild hair and fierce eyes that flashed with memories, tangled like vines. "This is Rich. She feigned heartbreak, played victim while I fought for my rights." The revelation wrapped around James like a vice, squeezing the breath from his lungs. "What do you mean?" he gasped, the weight of the moment shifting once again as the stranger continued. "You all think she's innocent? She's the reason I lost everything." "No." Lisa's voice rose, a beacon of desperation. But the air was thinning. Panic unfurled within the cabin. What was left of her composure began to crack, exposing a reserve of fear as others leaned closer, awaiting more revelations. "She took my child, my life, and now it's time to unveil the truth." The woman's voice resonated, each word like a stone thrown into the still surface of the sea, sending ripples of disbelief ricocheting through the group. Yet wreckage loomed ahead. James felt the reality of the situation wash over him like cold water. These were not coincidences. This was a convergence of lives entwined by far more than just fate. As he listened, A shadow fell across his memory. A flicker of recognition. The face belonging to the stranger now solidifying in his mind. With a mind racing to comprehend, James recalled whispered rumors shared in the corners of boardrooms and late-night bars. Tales of betrayal and secret deals that he'd turned a blind eye to. Stories which he'd thought faded beneath the shiny veneer of his own success. The pieces began to fit, every moment leading to this unraveling tapestry of deceit. "You're connected to her?" His voice barely rose above a whisper. "Yes," the woman shouted fiercely. "I tried to warn everyone. She's been playing everyone this whole time." Lisa's face twisted as the truth bore down upon her like a weight. She couldn't muster the strength to deny it. The boy at her side pressed closer, confusion strewn across his innocent visage. James felt the ground shift beneath him. Choices hung like thin strands before him, each more precarious than the last. Trust stood in tatters, revealing filaments of conspiracy woven together in unison among strangers. But one question, the most merciless yet, clawed at him. Who was Lisa Green really? And what legacy of lies had he inadvertently invited into his world? As a collective breath caught in the throat of the cabin, tension swelled towards a brink. This moment would change everything. With heart pounding and clarity dawning, James prepared to confront the unexpected future racing towards him, one that would unravel far beyond any single secret or confrontation, diving deeper into a darkness he had never anticipated. The cabin trembled as chaos erupted, a cacophony of outrage and confusion crashing against the polished walls. James felt the weight of 100 eyes tearing into him, the air thickening with expectation. Reality twisted like a fraying thread, pulling him towards an unseen danger, shrouding the woman he thought he understood. As Lisa's world teetered on the brink, the stranger's fury ignited something deep within James, a surge of instinct telling him to act, to step forward, to break the glassy surface of this emerging storm. Yet as he opened his mouth, "T," she shouted, her voice crackling with authority, yet fraught with tension. Yet, unexpectedly, with the alien shout, came silence. A moment so stark, you could almost hear the air shimmer. The antagonistic man faltered, surprised, just as Lisa's small hand trembled lower, clasping her son's shoulder. "Who are you?" she asked softly, her voice trembling under the weight of the truth, as if the word itself could shatter the fragile facade. "No one important," the man growled, his eyes darting around for affirmation, suddenly vulnerable. "Just a father trying to reclaim his son." James leaned forward, fingers tightly gripping the seat, breath suspended. But then, a thunderous noise erupted from the rear of the cabin, akin to a bomb detonating, sending split-second shockwaves of fear radiating through everyone. A figure, illuminated by the blue emergency lights flickering overhead, burst into view. It was a man, facial smeared with debris, wild hair framing a face marked by desperation. "Everyone listen! I'm not who you think I am!" he shouted, his breath ragged. I'm Lisa's brother. I have proof." Gasps of bewilderment rippled through the cabin. James's heart raced as the man's words ricocheted through his mind. Brother? Lisa had a brother? For a moment, confusion seized everyone. Eyes flickered between James and Lisa, the intensity of the moment charging the air with unsteady anticipation. What proof? James demanded, each word layered with skepticism. The unfolding chaos spun his thoughts, surrounding him like a tightening noose, drawing back old, dusty memories of veiled warnings and hidden tragedies. The man pulled something from his ragged bag, a slip of aged paper, crumpled but intact. "This," he cried, "this is the birth certificate. Lisa isn't who you believe." He thrust the paper into the air, high above the heads of the crowd, where it oscillated like a flag in the wind. Sickening gasps echoed, and Lisa's expression shifted from shock to horror, a stark betrayal flashing across her features. "No, no, you can't. This is a lie," she shouted, her voice trembling against a tide of rising disbelief. The boy curled into her, sensing his mother's unraveling, eyes wide in confusion. Ignoring her, the man continued. "Her real name is Claudia. She ran from our past. She's been hiding another life, a life filled with crimes, deceit, and—" He hesitated, letting the silence stretch like a taut wire. "She's the one who put a hit on our father." Stunned murmurs cascaded throughout the cabin, the air electric with disbelief. James's stomach twisted. Hit? Murder? Shadows of recognition crept in, shattering his carefully erected illusions of Lisa. Each beat of his heart felt heavier, drowning under the revelations. As Lisa fought against the tightening grip of panic, her eyes darted towards James, pleading yet furious. "You can't believe him!" But the voices turned to cacophony, murmurs morphing into shouts, swirling around them like an uncontainable storm. James faltered, each revelation crashing against the facade he thought he understood. Thoughts whirled, his mind racing to comprehend the whirlwind of truth, unveiling itself in front of him. The world he cherished, the calm veneer of his success, fragile and deceptive, collapsed under the weight of betrayal. With a low rumble, the plane began its descent, a sharp reminder that the ground was drawing nearer. But everything had changed. The burden of lies lay heavy upon them all, and beneath that weight, James saw the reflections of fear and desperation carved in everyone's eyes. As a collective breath caught in the throat of the cabin, the tension swelled towards a brink. Who could be trusted now? As the plane spiraled through the clouds, the looming questions clawed at James' furious breaths. What had he missed? What would become of them all? The cabin thrummed with tension, the air heavy as if the very plane carried secrets too weighty to fly. James's heartbeat thudded in his ears, drowning out the chaos around him. Every gaze shifted from the man brandishing the paper to Lisa, caught in a vortex of accusation and fear. She desperately clutched her son, who clung to her side, wide-eyed and trembling. Beneath the turmoil, something sinister began to unfurl. Just as the pulse of truth began to resonate, the cabin lights flickered ominously, casting shadows that danced in the corners. People murmured, unease rippling through the rows like a jolt of electricity. "Enough!" Lisa's voice shattered the growing noise, bravery sparking in her eyes. "You're all twisted! This is a setup!" But proof lingered in the air, thick with conflicting emotions. James strained to see through the cacophony, searching for clarity. Then came that sound, a soft whirring, barely perceptible, yet insistent. It rose from a corner of the cabin, growing louder, more distinct, and an icy dread settled in his stomach. All eyes turned just in time to see a portal open in the overhead compartment, revealing an unlikely figure, a woman in a sleek black suit, her face partially obscured by a high-tech visor. She stepped forward, assertive, commanding the attention of the entire cabin without uttering a word. "Shut it down," she said coolly, her voice a sharp blade, slicing through the confusion. James felt his breath catch. Every thought of loyalty shifted as she continued. "You've all been played." The hushed whispers turned into a ripple of confusion. Individuals exchanging glances, grappling with the sudden shift in narrative. "I don't know who you think you are," the brother spat, eyes narrowing. "But this doesn't concern you." "Oh, but it does," she replied, her tone unwavering. "You see, I'm here to retrieve the asset." She pointed fiercely at Lisa, but beyond anger, something flittered in the depths of her eyes, a glimmer of recognition. "You all have a right to know the truth." The cabin erupted into murmurings, voices rising as fear danced in the air. "Asset?" James whispered incredulously, his heart racing. The words settled like lead in his chest. A cold realization crept in. Nothing was as it seemed. "Lisa Green," the woman continued, a.k.a. Claudia Roberts, has been under investigation for years, linked to a syndicate that stretches beyond borders. A palpable gasp cascaded through the cabin. Lisa's face blanched, the ephemeral mask of a struggling mother shattered. But the drama didn't end there. The ominous hum overhead intensified, flickering lights signaling a descent into chaos. With a sudden pulse, alarms echoed through the cabin, coupling with the ominous announcement from the cockpit. "Prepare for emergency landing. Prepare for emergency landing." A collective gasp stirred the chaos anew, fear their only unifier. Just as the truth hung in the air, another figure appeared. A man, rugged and wild-eyed, bursting down the aisle. Like a whirlwind, he shouted, "Stop! You can't take her!" The instant he rushed forward, chaos erupted anew. People scrambled, some standing, others recoiling. James's mind raced. The brother's claims, the woman's accusations, it was too much. A twist, an unexpected betrayal. The world he thought he knew was collapsing under layers of deception. But before James could process it, the man reached Lisa, grabbing her arm tightly. "My sister, you're not leaving with them," he yelled, anger lacing every syllable as Lisa's expression morphed from shock to horror, recognizing the man, not as an adversary, but as a hidden guardian. "They'll kill you." And in that moment, as the cabin descended into bedlam, James felt the ground shift. Who were these people around him? Lisa wasn't merely a harassed mother, and her brother had no claim as a mere pursuer. They were caught in a deadly game, spinning webs of betrayal thicker than he'd ever imagined. The realization gripped him, potent and terrifying. Choices loomed ahead, darker than the shadows they cast. Would he stand by her side or flee from this tangled fate? As sirens wailed in the distance, the future unraveled into a storm, one that would redefine everything. And the next second, the lights went out. The lights flickered out, engulfing the cabin in darkness, a suffocating veil swallowing all sound. Panic exploded like a firecracker, voices rising in a dissonant symphony of fear. James's heart raced, pulse thundering in his ears, drowning out thoughts of escape that flitted through his mind like moths in a flame. The sudden chaos morphed the air thick, heavy with uncertainty and desperation. As his eyes struggled to adjust, a voice, a chilling, gentle whisper, pierced through the tumult. "Claudia, you don't have to run anymore," it said, soothing yet foreboding, echoing from the opposite aisle. His breath caught as he recognized it. Not Lisa's voice, but a haunting familiarity that wove through the very fabric of a life he'd thought he'd left behind. Emerging from the shadow, the figure stepped forward, illuminated briefly by a flickering light. The visor-donned woman, her features coming into focus as she advanced. "We've waited too long for this moment." Her tone dripped with a sinister calm, revealing an unsettling depth. "Who are you?" James managed, his voice strained as confusion twisted in his gut. Anticipation electrified the air around them, the passengers frozen in a tableau of dread. The man by Lisa squeezed her arm tighter, a protector turned prisoner, while Lisa's wide eyes reflected both anger and fear in the dimness. A flick at her wrist summoned a small device, casting a ghostly glow across the space, illuminating her face, a sharp contrast against the shadows. "You'll understand soon enough," she replied, her smile thin and practiced. "This isn't just a flight, James. It's a reckoning. Claudia, you have a place in this, whether you choose to acknowledge it or not." The tension snapped. Lisa, Claudia flinched back, her face a tableau of shock and embarrassment. "I was never meant to return. You shouldn't be here." Panic seeped into her voice, each word laced with unshed tears. She looked around the cabin, desperate for an ally, but every gaze felt like shackles binding her to her reality. But the woman remained unmoved, her eyes gleaming with a knowledge that felt ancient and powerful. "You have only yourself to blame for this," she continued. "The past doesn't just disappear." Suddenly, amidst the chaos, the passenger at the back shouted, "What does she mean, Claudia?" His voice cracked like thunder, pulling everyone into the eye of the storm. "You sold us out. You betrayed your own." "No," Lisa cried, but the words fell like stones, heavy and accusations hanging thick in the stale air. Whispers cascaded, confusion mounting. Suddenly, all eyes turned to James, as if an unspoken alliance twisted around him. He was embedded in this storm without choice, the gravity of their shared history pressing against his chest. Then, as if a dam had burst, Lisa shouted, It wasn't mine to control. I did what I had to survive." Her voice crumbled, cracking under the weight of raw emotion, splintering the tension that had coiled so tightly around them. The passengers within earshot leaned in, hearts racing with a perverse mix of horror and fascination. But before they could process her revelation, the overhead alarms blared louder, intertwining with the chaos, blinding lights flickering erratically above. Suddenly, the man at her side spoke through gritted teeth. "This was all your plan, wasn't it? To lure us all here, just to finish the job?" Recognition shattered around James. This was not just chaos. It was a culmination of webs woven through a tapestry of betrayal spanning years. The final piece clicked as the false light of unity flickered. Loyalty dissolved into hostility, everything unraveling at the seams. But just as a scream wove through the rising tumult, the woman raised her chin, a predatory glint glimmering in her eyes, revealing the truth that would send ruptures through every soul present. "Claudia, your father, he isn't dead," she stated, each word slicing through the air like a blade, ice forming in their veins. The cabin fell into a silence so profound it trembled with the weight of revelation. James felt like the ground had fallen away beneath him. The world dissolved in confusion. Betrayal darkened every face, and shadows deepened, enveloping their destinies in uncertainty. With that single statement, the plane lurched beneath them, plummeting, twisting through the air towards an unknown fate. And in that free fall, James understood this wasn't merely a reckless flight. It was something far more perilous. As all eyes narrowed on Lisa, James braced himself, knowing that nothing, not 1 ounce of what he understood of this woman, stood as protection against the hidden legacies of the past colliding with their present. He took a breath, heart fluttering in sync with the chaos, and as the cabin went black once more, he awaited the unfathomable truth that lurked with. James's heart raced, each beat slicing through the oppressive silence that followed the revelation. The weight of Lisa's identity slipped into a black abyss, and he felt time stretch, each second an eternity, as realization hung palpable in the air, thickening it with dread and uncertainty. Just then, the overhead lights flickered back on for a heartbeat, enough to reveal the scene in stark clarity. The wild-haired man, the supposed brother, shouted as if wielding a knife, "Lisa, no, you can't think they'll protect you. They're using you." Panic surged, a wave crashing against the cabin walls. Lisa, or Claudia, staggered backward, eyes wide in bewilderment. The weight of the accusations bore down on her, each word a dagger focused on her core truth. James's brow furrowed, confusion settling in the pit of his stomach. Desperation pulsed through the air, threatening to detonate at any moment. The woman in the visor stepped forward, unwavering, the chaos swirling around her like a storm. "She's not just a pawn. She's the queen in a game none of you comprehend." A piercing gaze locked on Lisa. "You think you can hide forever?" With that, the turbulence of emotions shifted again. A familiar voice echoed through the chaos, calling from the cockpit, "Mayday, we're going down." The urgency electrified the atmosphere. A sharp knife, cutting through the thickening tension. For a split second, all hope seemed lost. Eyes turned upward, desperation radiating like heat off asphalt. But it was Lisa who shattered the moment. "Stop!" she yelled, her voice trembling yet fierce, breaking free from her haze of betrayal. "Look at me. You don't know the truth." More murmurs ricocheted through the cabin, growing louder, rasping against the backdrop of desperation. "What truth?" the rugged man spat, frustration clutching at his throat. "Tell us." Her breath hitched, and then the unraveling began. "I am not who I thought I was either. I'm not just Claudia. I was part of them." Confessions tumbled out, the air turning thick with impending horror. Murmurs morphed into gasps, the weight of her words settling like lead. "What the hell does that mean?" The brother's voice cracked. Confusion woven with anger flickered in his eyes. Then, with an unsettling calm rising, she continued. "I'm an operative, trained to infiltrate and deceive. I was sent to dismantle the syndicate, and—" she hesitated, tears pooling, then erupted with a crescendo of raw emotion. "And I failed!" The cabin fell into an abyssal silence, the kind that suffocated possibility. Shock waves rippled through every passenger, disbelief hanging thick in the stifled air. Tailspins of betrayal spun around James. The woman he thought he knew had built her life on a foundation lined with secrets deeper than oceans. Before he could grasp the implications, lights flickered, the alarms blaring a desperate melody, echoing against the panic-laden passengers. Suddenly, the cabin shook violently, metal creaking in protest against gravity's unyielding grasp. James felt the pull of fear, crashing like waves. Yet something deeper tugged at his conscience. Inside him, an ember of skepticism sparked alive. With all eyes glued to Lisa's revealing truth, the viz. "And you, James Thornton," she began, her words slicing through the tumult, "you've walked into a web of espionage yourself." Time slowed. The shadows deepened, and the storm of realizations exploded, fracturing the world he thought he understood. "What do you mean?" he breathed, senses heightened by the weight of her accusation. "Oh, you're not merely a bystander, are you?" she retorted, venom lacing her words. "You were chosen for a reason. You're part of this game. Trust us, as far as you can throw the sky." Light streamed briefly, illuminating gasps and widening eyes, pushing the narrative into an unforeseen darkness. The true scope of the night's horrors clawed at his unraveling mind, exposing a conspiracy lurking like a specter within the fabric of his own life. Nothing felt secure anymore. As the plane pitched again, the last tether of possibility snapped. Who could he trust? And before he could make sense of this new nightmare, the engines screamed, a final desperate cry against their twisted fate. As the cabin lurched toward a catastrophic end, a singular truth hung suspended in the chaos. James was ensnared in a game far grander than merely lives lost, echoing far beyond the storm clouds encasing them. The cabin trembled as chaos erupted, the heart-pounding alarms crescendoing against the backdrop of spine-chilling truths unfurling like dark flags. James felt the ground slip away beneath him. Every breath grew labored as the revelation hanged in the air. The veneer of his rare. They were spiraling into uncertainty, a fall that twisted the very foundations of trust and identity. "Claudia, your father, he isn't dead," the woman declared, words striking like bullets through the veil of comprehension. A gasp erupted. Passengers recoiled, as if struck by a physical blow. Each face turned towards Lisa, the air thick with disbelief, her identity folding upon itself like a house of cards. Lisa's mouth moved soundlessly, the truth flooding the space around them. But then her brother seized her arm, grounding their connection to something real amidst the storm. "What are you talking about? You've always told me he was gone." The visor-wearing woman tilted her head, a serpent weaving through the chaos. "He's been watching, waiting. The reasons for your existence have always been layered in this tangled web, but no one saw it until now." James clutched the armrests, every instinct urging him to flee from the imploding narrative that surrounded them. The turbulence shook them again, sending a ripple of urgency through the cabin. "What are you saying?" His voice cut through the confusion, demanding coherence. But before Lisa could answer, a sudden dark shadow loomed at the overhead compartment. Shadows cascading over the seats. A deep thrum rattled the cabin as the plane's engines stuttered. Gasps of impending dread mingling with the roars of machinery fighting against their fate. It was then, amidst cries of alarm and the flickering lights, the emergency doors burst open with a horrifying screech, revealing a horrifying spectacle. A man falling, arms flailing into the aisles like a helpless marionette, a flicker of recognition igniting within James. "James!" His name echoed like a battle cry, raw and frantic. The fall was chaos incarnate. The figure landed heavily in front of James, gasping for breath. It was his brother, Nathan, wild-eyed, with dirt and blood staining his shirt. A testament to the struggle he had fought to reach his brother in the midst of unfolding calamity. "You have to listen to me. It's all a trap. Everyone here is lying." Every head turned towards Nathan. The collective breath held in disbelief. Confusion morphed into fear as the cabin buzzed with fragmented questions, accusations, shock woven into every glance. "What are you—" James stammered, his heart racing anew, blurring the world around him. "No time," Nathan gasped, coughing, eyes darting over the passengers. "Lisa! Claudia! The syndicate isn't just after her. They're after you." The revelation hit James like a freight train. Cold dread seeped into his marrow. He looked from Nathan to Lisa, who stood frozen, torn between shock and a flicker of something he couldn't grasp. "It's bigger than any of us. They're using her as bait," Nathan continued, fear twisting his features into a mask of urgency. "I was part of the network too. I didn't know until now." Thunder rolled through the cabin. Silence thrummed in the charged air. Eyes widened, breaths hitched. But just as the weight of his brother's bombshell settled, like lead, the lights flickered once more, plunging them into darkness. A single scream echoed before the roar of the engine surged back, pushing them into impending chaos. In that crumbling moment, a sudden thought spiraled through James, a chilling realization layering itself over the chaos. Could Nathan himself have orchestrated all of this? Were these revelations part of a deeper scheme, intended not just to protect, but manipulate him into a game much larger than he understood? As his heart raced, thoughts swirled in a fog of betrayal and loyalty. The world shifted beneath him, and as the cabin lights ignited in an electric flurry, illuminating the terrified faces, James was left grasping at threads, unraveling before him, teetering on the edge between truth and a deception so profound it might consume them all. And as he faced the abyss of revelations, the landing gear gave a brutal jolt. The embodiment of their fall echoed within him. This was no longer merely a struggle for survival. It was a descent into madness. And the shadows whispered of a truth yet to be born. The cabin reverberated with a mixture of confusion and fear. The air charged with impending disaster as James fought to process Nathan's revelation. The panic was palpable. Hearts raced in synchrony with the chaotic thrum of the engines. Shadows flickered in the dim light, distorting familiar features into masks of dread, as if everyone were seconds away from a truth too horrifying to confront. "Then we need to stop her," he shouted, urgency slicing through the confusion. "She doesn't just know us." "Who?" The question escaped James's lips like a breath lost in the tumult, panic threading through him like a snake tightening its grip. He turned to Lisa, Claudia, full of contradictions, but before he could voice more, the emergency lights flared to life, bathing the cabin in a stark red glow, saturating panic within every heartbeat. With the persistent hum of disarray drumming around him, he caught a glimpse of the visor-clad woman. Her calm demeanor felt unnatural amid the chaos, setting her apart like a specter in the night. "You think I'm the one who orchestrated this?" There was a strength and a taint of malevolence in her tone, yet something primal flickered in her eyes. It was then an echo of recognition washed over James, colliding past and present like a comet shattering the night sky. "Jenna," he whispered. Years melted away. An old associate from a world James thought he left behind. A ghost masquerading in the present. "What are you doing here?" But her focus remained fierce. Zeroed in on Lisa, the woman who stood at the vortex of truth and deception. "You're still so naive," Jenna replied, voice merely above a whisper, laden with disdain. "Everything you thought you knew was a fabrication." Claudia's breath hitched, and the anger radiating off Nathan simmered like a boiling pot. "I don't owe you an explanation," she shot back, defiance mixing with fear. Yet behind her bravado lay vulnerability, each declaration embedding further doubt in her reliability. The tension thickened, a tangible weight holding everyone hostage. "You left so much behind!" Jenna cut through the palpable tension, words sharp as glass. You made a choice. We didn't want this. Her voice spoke of scars unhealed, betrayal lingering like soot. And in that moment, the shadows in James's mind coalesced. This wasn't merely about Lisa's identity. This was a revelation that threatened to tear apart the fragile fabric binding them all. Suddenly, the plane shook violently once more, throwing the passengers against their seats. A collective gasp echoed, primal instinct merging fear and survival into a singular, raw emotion. In the midst of the chaos, something clattered to the floor. A small, metallic device made of sleek, black glass. James lunged forward, fingers trembling, snatching it up, the object sticky with the weight of significance. The others stared at him, confusion turning to dread as the device began to illuminate, flickering ominously to life, projecting a holographic image above them. A family photo. Faces familiar yet foreign peered down at them. James's heart stopped. The very image radiated darkness, symbols swirling around, fierce shadows twisting within the confines of the light. Those weren't just strangers. That was his family. "No!" he gasped, as the pieces clicked together. The realization hammering within. The photo morphed, revealing details of clandestine meetings, hushed whispers. The horrifying secret that his mother had concealed from him all those years flashed painfully into focus. "You've been lying. I'm part of this too? We were all pawns?" "What do you think this is?" Jenna shouted, eyes blazing. "Your blood ties you to them. This entire debacle, you are the key." The cabin reeled, breaths caught in throats as the horrific revelation solidified. The life he knew had never existed. Relationships fractured, identities transformed, and as accusations hung heavy, the weight of hidden legacies threatened to rip them all apart. Just as the plane lurched perilously downward, James clutched the image, struggling against the tide of betrayal, knowing that what lay ahead would redefine every single bond he held dear. Because the past wasn't merely past, it was alive, and it was seeking retribution in ways he could neither foresee nor escape. The cabin was still swirling in chaos, but somehow things felt different. Lisa, Claudia, her gaze caught James's. In that brief moment, fear and defiance clashed in her eyes. "You don't have to be part of this," she said softly, almost pleading. "We can walk away." But the reality was heavy. James looked around the cabin, seeing not just frightened faces, but echoes of betrayal. Nathan was pale, breathlessly trying to grasp the gravity of the situation. The man in the aisle, fear and fury washing over him, began to shake. "This needs to end," Nathan declared, eyes blazing. Jenna stepped closer, her presence grounding him. "You're not alone in this anymore, James. We'll face whatever comes next, together." As the plane began to settle amidst the storm, a quiet resolve washed over the passengers. James held the holographic image, feeling the past wrap around him like a heavy cloak, but he couldn't let it dictate his future. "I don't know if I can trust you," he said, staring at Lisa. "Then trust yourself," she replied, her voice trembling yet strong. "You are not your past." Just then, the emergency lights brightened, illuminating the cabin like a beacon through the dark. The engine noise faded, and a calm settled over everyone, as if the storm outside had responded to their shared resolution. James took a deep breath, focusing on the choices ahead. "Let's turn this around," he urged. "We know the truth now. Let's make it right." And in that moment of unity, the airplane began to stabilize. Passengers exchanged glances, and understanding blossoming like flowers after a storm. Everyone seemed ready to fight for their own narrative, to reclaim the pieces lost to deception. As the plane descended towards solid ground, James felt the weight lift. No longer alone, he was enveloped by a circle of new allies, bound by truths shared and confronted. Each person was now a player, a partner, and not a pawn. The tires screeched against the tarmac, jolting them into reality as they touched down. Gasps of relief erupted throughout the cabin, joy blended with a bittersweet taste. Standing together, James, Lisa, Nathan, and Jenna breathed in the air of possibility. But as they disembarked, a chilling reminder echoed in James's mind. The shadows of their pasts would always linger. Just as the last of the passengers stepped off the plane, a figure remained, lurking beneath the flickering lights. James caught a glimpse, the familiar dark eyes watching, a whisper of danger still hanging in the air. As they walked toward the exit, Lisa turned to James. "It's not over, is it?" He shook his head slightly, but smiled nonetheless. "No, but we'll face it together." With that, they stepped into the light, knowing that although this chapter closed, the story was far from finished. In the distance, a shadow moved, whispering secrets of what was yet to come. You must subscribe now to catch every twist of our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm that keeps our community alive. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this ending. And share this video right now with at least 5 friends who need to know how this ends. Don't wait another second to support your favorite channel. Only true fans understand the urgency.